Hello.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me fine?
Yep, I can hear you.
Good deal.
All right. Sorry, my leg was asleep.
I completely understand.
How was your week?
Good. Thankfully not too crazy. And we're coming up into parent-teacher conferences, so we've got a short week coming up this week.
Me too. Yep, we've got them on Wednesday and Thursday. So I'll be here. There's Matthew.
All right.
Hello. There's Anita. I can't see them yet. Oh,
There you go.
hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I still can't see Anita. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you. I can't see you. I can see Matt.
I'm just trying to get you a background that doesn't blast everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So where are you at?
I'm up by Marysville, Kansas.
Marysville? Okay.
North of Manhattan, an hour.
Okay. I'm in Ottawa.
I'm in Pratt, South Central Kansas.
Okay.
Topeka here.
Cool. All right. So what do we want to do? Do we want to kind of have the discussion that we got the notes started on from last time, and then our assignment is due today, right?
No, I don't think the
Next Sunday.
yeah, there's like just the discussion board today, and then next Sunday I think is the presentation on this.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I don't feel so stressed out then.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Matt, did you get to read the notes?
Yeah, I glanced through those.
Okay, great. So I guess anything you guys want to add to what we had talked about, what Liam and I talked about earlier?
I'd have to pull them back up though. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Let me find.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, neat. Yeah, I saw that you could do screen sharing with it. I hadn't tried it.
Oh,
I can see it. Awesome. Thanks, Anita.
Oh,
what am I doing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so after I looked at more of the videos and readings, I saw they are calling it like a learning brain versus
Like
what's the
a
other
trauma
thing?
or stress. Yeah.
A stress brain. Yeah, a learning brain versus a stress brain. So I was calling it a cause and effect brain versus a fight or flight brain. So it's kind of the same thing.
I think kind of terminology depends too who you're visiting with too, because at our school we use a little bit different terminology.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys say?
What?
What do you guys say?
No, we use the cause and the effect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember us having anything specific at our school. We do talk about trying to be trauma informed, but I don't know if we talk very specifically about any of the brain activity.
I think that's on our agenda for upcoming professional development, but we haven't hardly talked about it since in the year plus I've been at Marysville.
We actually had a 2-day training last year, and that's all we talked about was the social, emotional, and then we had somebody that from Hutchinson that actually wrote our curriculum that we use. He came for part of the day and spoke with us, And then we, last year we implemented 30 minutes every week doing social emotional learning. And this year we also have that 30 minutes set aside. And we're not only following that curriculum, but we're also adding other stuff into our social emotional learning.
Nice. So what kind of things have you guys talked about that you do, like building wide?
So our curriculum basically is K through 12. So it's the same words, same verbiage. Just as we progress, we get deeper into it. But basically, it's a curriculum that's written through K-12. So that's how we kind of do it. We've also been very intentional about kids that are failing grade-wise and researching the reasons why those grades are, why they're always on the D and the F list. So then going farther into that as to if it's from some of the traumatization that they may have had.
Does your school kind of do like an inventory from it? Because the moment that you said just the style of learning that you're going through there, I know that we do like a little inventory for the social emotional component where we'll take like everybody grades their 4th hour students, and they'll basically say like, how likely are these behaviors to happen, or how likely are these? And they're like tiered behaviors, and like depending on how many points a student gets, they may be labeled as the student is relatively at risk. And we try to refer them to programs like we have like a school psychiatrist who comes weekly, and we try to see about getting them set up with things like that, or if there's just any services that we can provide in home or anything like that.
Yes, we do. We did that the first of the year, and then we do it at the end of the year. And as teachers, I didn't keep copies, and honestly, I don't know what the numbers mean. We just rank them and then give them to our counselor, and our counselor actually worked in the public and mental health. So she is full-time with us now, so we have that resource there. One of the things that she does is during our social emotional learning time is if we have students that have specific needs that need to be met, that allows them to go meet with her at that time.
Can we, Anita, I'm curious, like, I guess I know of a few kids who have trauma because they've written about it in class, but we haven't had any systematic discussion in terms of, who would be affected by that. So when I look at the notes and it says, we would give kids different ways out, like if they don't feel like talking that day. I don't know that enough of the history of the kids to know who I should be doing that with to start with.
Excuse me one second.
Our class size, the biggest class is 30, so our high school is relatively small. Being in a small community, we are pretty well in touch with everybody.
Are you 4A?
Of the students.
Are you 4A, Anita?
No, we are a small 2A.
Okay, we're 3A. And I mean, I come from this community. I was gone for 20 years, but I know a lot of the family histories. I know I have I know I've got a good socioeconomic profile in my head, but in terms of specific physical or sexual violence that kids have experienced, that's not something that I know probably. I mean, you know some family histories, of course, and my dad did parents as teachers, so he gives me some background on kids too, but that doesn't always, there's only so much I know, I guess.
And one of the other things is at our school, we have one of our sheriff's officers is there every morning and every afternoon as students are coming and leaving. So our administration talks with them on a very daily basis as to anything that may have been reported through law enforcement. So I feel that we are kept pretty well on top of things that are happening in our school.
I know for the evaluation system we did, we would do it based on behaviors that we were seeing, or like how
Yeah.
likely we thought those things were to pop up.
We
So
use Sabers for that. I don't know what you guys use, Liam.
we do use Sabers, at least for our social work folks. We do talk about that, but as far as doing the tiered inventory for the socio-emotional learning, we will look for certain, like the behaviors that we're asked to rate are things like, loneliness or negative interactions with
Yeah.
peers, things that we are seeing or how likely we know those things to be happening. So I don't know if that sheds a little more light. Like we don't always know either with 100% accuracy, like what trauma is going on at home, unless we already have
Right.
information toward that end. But a lot of our, what triggers us giving more services is based on what we see.
Right. We're doing that, so I feel a little better.
Yeah. So a couple things I'd like to add. We use Sabers as well. My school is very small. I don't know if it's a 1A or a 2A, but we're in the same league as Wellsville, which I know is a 2A. So
Which cadence? I'm sorry.
Osawatomie,
Oh, Swan. Okay.
Kansas. It's very small. Like my 8th grade class has 59 students in the entire 8th grade. So it's
You're probably 3. We're 60-ish for 3A.
okay. And so we have used the Sabers, we use the SRSS, and we discuss those as a grade level team. So it's not just what does one teacher think, it's what does our 7th grade team think, or what does our 8th grade team think about each of these kids. So hopefully those numbers reflect kind of a consensus. And then when you were Anita, when you were talking about last year doing like the social emotional learning meetings, we did that as well. We had social emotional groups after school on Wednesdays, 1 day a week for almost the entire year last year. But a lot of our focus was on like the basic needs of kids being met, like which kids are coming to school hungry, and which kids don't have clean clothes, and which kids have we had to get them dressed or start a rotating schedule where they have a chance to shower or brush their teeth because they're not able to do that at home. So those were kind of more of the things that we have talked about and focused on. Relating back to the reading and kind of like what you're just talking about with trying to like be informed like through law enforcement or the administration communicating you with what's going on, I really liked in the reading, and I'm trying to move this screen a little bit. It was the podcast from Angela Watson. The podcast from Angela Watson talked about it's not our job to I guess save the kids from their trauma, and that we shouldn't assume like which ones do have it or which ones don't have it just based on information that we have. And so I really liked that it talked about that, because that falls along with like the universal design that we try to have in our classrooms. We talk about the universal design a lot. So that goes for kind of like our teaching method, but also kind of just like the lens that we look at our classes with for social and emotional learning, because on the curriculum and the like classroom structure side, you want to have a universal design where you maybe are doing things in your curriculum that are going to help all students, even if you're designing it specifically for a couple students that really, really need it. But it's kind of the same thing with social emotional. You want to think, okay, how can I approach students in a way that would be trauma informed? And I'm going to do that for every kid, even though I don't think this kid has a trauma background, but if they did, this is how I would approach them. And so those are kind of the things that are kind of like running through my head while you guys were talking there. So I just want to throw that out there. Sorry, I know that was a lot.
Yeah, no, it's great. Okay. So if we talk about social emotional stuff, we're doing a ton of stuff at Marysville, especially with 7th and 8th graders. We have a period we call AEP, and last year high school and junior high were at the same time. And this year we split it so that the junior high could get special. We could kind of break them off and start the first hour of the day with that. And they're doing it. And I teach 8th graders, but for whatever reason, I'm not on that period this year. But they're doing a ton of organizational skills and life skills. They're going through a ton of how to use the software so that they're more organized with school, but also all of these things we're talking about in terms of how to take care of yourself, especially if you come from where you didn't learn those types of skills. And we just had a school assembly for everybody where a guy came in and talked about sex trafficking and social media, which is like one of those ones where they tell stories that you cry at. And some 8th grade girls wanted to cry when we're done, and they could. We let them. I say that kind of flippantly. I don't mean it flippantly at all. I'm just, you're not prepared for what you hear sometimes, and then you hear that stuff. And we also have right now, we have a Communities in Schools of Mid-America grant that is paying for a social worker. I don't know if it's just last year and this year or how long the grant goes, but she's one that gets kids referred to her with the types of things that one of you, Anita, I think you were talking about kids that, or maybe you were talking about this, Cadence. I'm sorry, I'm not taking good notes here, about kids that need work with showering and clothes and stuff like that. If we notice something, they're going to her caseload. And the counselors are also spending a lot of time on this as well. That's into my sermon.
I would say kind of toward that end, I know that we know with our student population, since we're an alternative high school, we tend to have a high frequency of high trauma students for one reason or another. In that vein, we try to provide a resource room for them as far as like an area where they can get food or hygiene supplies or clothing. We ask for community donations and things like that. So I know that's been beneficial for students. And, obviously there's no like screening process. It's just under the assumption, like if you're coming for it, you need it. So you're welcome to it.
Yeah. Hey, there's another thing I wanted to mention that I just coincidentally noticed this week. It wasn't something I was looking for, but the Boston Globe had a really good article, and the title is "Miracle on the Mystic: Chelsea Everett and the New American Dream," and this is from their ideas section by David Scharfenberg. And the overall article is about a study that looked at why kids from lower socioeconomic situations succeeded in some. I think it's broken down by census districts and not in others, sometimes a mile apart. And one of the big things they found is that kids could move from one area that was not so great to another area that wasn't so great. But the big factors, the thing we're talking about, that video talked about, was violence. And they cite Patrick Sharkey at Princeton, who said that they started doing brain scans on kids, and kids that have been exposed to murders, they were expecting to see some sort of brain damage, or not brain damage, but cognitive reversal. And he said basically kids exposed to violence looked like they'd missed at least 2 years of schooling. So it's a pretty incredible statistic. I didn't really know much about that until I was on the East Coast and I volunteered with some people in Hartford. And it was an inner city, north end of Hartford Catholic worker. And my friend Chris, who runs the place, said, "Hey, Bubba, come over here." And so this is a kid, he's a late high school kid. And he goes, "Bubba, how many guys do you know that have been murdered?" And Bubba starts counting, and he got to 11, and he lost track. And it was more than 11, right? He just didn't remember them all at that point in time. And you start to see those studies about cortisol and stuff. And if you're living in a situation where on a daily basis that somebody that could be seriously injured or murdered because of whatever the situation is, I think that you definitely live your life differently, and your brain operates differently than the way that I grew up, which was my biggest danger was that my brother might throw a rock at me or something, and I'd have to throw it back at him.
Yeah, it's not something I ever grew up with. And when I went to that, I went to a Bridge to Resilience conference, and I told Liam a little bit about that earlier in the week, but a statistic that stuck out to me, I don't remember the exact numbers, but what it was saying was that pretty much the majority of all teachers don't have a toxic stress background. And so the increase in the amount of students that we have that do have that kind of home environment, or that like increased level of stress, it's harder for us to like relate and understand because that's not something that we ever grew up with. And I just was glad that they pointed out that statistic, because at the start of the year last year, which was my first year teaching ever, I just felt totally unqualified to work with the kids, because I'm like, I don't even know how to, approach this conversation when, I'm trying to give them a detention for something and they're like, my dad put cigarettes out on me this morning. Like, you think I care? And so, things like that, where I was just like, felt like I just didn't have like even like the ground to, meet them one-on-one to even understand where they're coming from. I was at least glad that I'm not alone in that, but that's a whole new challenge when teachers don't understand where their kids are coming from. And so I think it's important that, we do know about the research, we do understand how their brains are different and how we need to approach them and, be able to teach them when they're missing huge chunks of information because of things like that are just so shocking and horrible that I personally can't even imagine going through.
It's interesting because you want to try to maintain classroom discipline. I'm just riffing off of you talking about detentions there, right? And I'm always getting mad. I'm like, you guys got to be quiet. I'm going to make it come after school to see me. And, I don't know what's informing how they're behaving that day, right? Part is I'm not a very good teacher yet. Part of it's whatever else is distracting them. Part of it's the end of the day and they want to get out of there. And almost every time I say, oh, you got to come see me after school, then I want to soft pedal it later on, right? Because I don't really care about like a punishment. I more care about how can we engage in a way that we can have a conversation about these things so I can help you get better at this thing. Now, I don't know all the underlying things. And, like you're talking about a kid telling you there that they got burned. One of the girls, 8th graders this year, wrote, she goes we're writing in class about something. She's like, last year, one of my brother's friends broke in the house and tried to attack me with a knife. And I was babysitting 2 little kids and she got cut. She locked herself in the bedroom and got the police called. But I'm like, well, thank you for sharing that story with me. And do you need somebody to talk to? Because I don't really have much I can offer you beyond thank you for sharing your story with me. And she said she had access to counseling and stuff. But so outside of my experience that I'm just like, I'm glad she trusted me enough to share the story. So hopefully that is a sign that I'm some way teaching in a way that kids are willing to tell me things. But at the same time, it's just really scary to hear those things.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it is just those students having somebody that they can confide in and trust and tell, somebody that they know that they can talk to and will listen.
Yeah.
Anita, what do you do to try to make your classroom open to kids or open to them being able to come to you, I guess?
So I'm the ag teacher, so I'm in a separate building. And I have kids coming there before school. My classroom is always open during lunch. I usually have lunch in my office. I usually have 3 or 4 students that come back there to see if there's any food in my refrigerator for them to eat, which there always is. And I just try to have a very open door policy. And, I've got to know the students fairly well, the ones that are probably more troubled. I can just kind of sense when they need a hug or need something, somebody to talk to. I've got a couple students that our schedule is a little bit flexible we only have classes meet 4 of the 5 days of the week. So they have some flex time. And a lot of times I have students that come in there that just need someplace to sleep because they are working to support their families. And so they have 2 or 3 hours of no classes or anything. And I have a couch back there. And a lot of times they'll just come and crash for 2 or 3 hours. They probably need to sleep more than anything. And so I've just really tried to have that open door to allow those students to come in, grab something to eat, go take a nap if they need these. That's kind of how I've had my policy.
Yeah. Liam, do you do anything specific or?
I was about to say, sometimes it can be the littlest, weirdest things. I had a student who opened up to me about abuse from her brother at home, just from this was maybe week 2 of school. It was really early on. And that just came from me, standing outside of the room and saying hi. I know that particular thing is always kind of hokey in terms of lots of people are like, oh, you'll build such great relationships with your kids if you do this. And I do think there's value in it in terms of trying to say hi to them on a one-on-one basis. And sometimes you do get them opening up about something really big out of nowhere in that case. So, it was an important process for us to go through, especially since I had never had to make the reports that were associated with that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything you can do relationship building wise, I think helps students to open up more. There are plenty of students that haven't opened up to me as much. And,
Right.
sometimes it's knowing who they have a good relationship with at school. Sometimes we'll have those kinds of plans in place. Like if I send an email like, hey, so-and-so looks like they're kind of down, they might say like, oh, well, if they're in a good place in your class, can you send them to so-and-so because she has a really good relationship with him, and maybe
Yeah.
he'll open up a little bit more to her. Like
Yeah.
if you're flexible with allowing them time with staff members that they get along with, I think that goes a long way too, so that they can, maybe explain what's going on.
Yeah.
Cadence, you got any techniques?
Well, on just going off of what Liam just said about standing outside your door, our entire building our principal has instated teachers are required to stand at their door and greet every single student as they're coming in. And that can be either like fist bump or a high five or just saying their name and saying good morning or whatever it is. So that's something that we talk about creating opportunities to respond, OTRs. So anytime you can create the opportunity where the student can reach back to you by either giving a high five or a fist bump or responding by saying good morning, or if you've got a kid who you're trying to kind of engage more, you can say, hey Johnny, I see somebody drop their pencil, would you mind picking that up for me? If
Yeah.
they do it, you can see that they're responding to you, they're at least engaging with you in some way. So like creating opportunities to respond is something that we talk about a lot because it builds the relationship, especially with those harder kids that, you maybe know something's going on, but they're not feeding you information or they're not offering anything up. So creating a situation where you have an opportunity for them to respond can actually start getting them to open up to you a little bit more. Or even if it doesn't, at least you're reaching out to the kid, trying to be open. We also talk a lot about 3-to-1s. So for every one negative interaction you have with a kid, creating 3 positive interactions, which, is kind of hard to actually take account on. But, if you have a negative interaction where, kid is coming into class and they don't have their things, sorry, go get your stuff, that's a tardy, and then try throughout class to have like 3 positives, like, oh, hey, I really like how you explained that. That was a good job. Or, hey, thanks for helping out so-and-so. That was a good job on, I don't know, supporting your partner for this activity, kind of just creating those positive interactions to try and balance that out and like maintain the positive relationship, even though you had to have a negative interaction with the kid.
I like that. I always forget that 3-to-1 thing. I know in the back of my head that if something bad happens, I want to try to change that, but I don't always get to it. Right. I'm terrible. If you counted, I'm sure I would not be hitting that. I would be on the negative side of that.
I know. And I struggle with that too, with a couple particular kids, because I feel like there's a lot of negative interaction. But like we were talking about in one of our PLCs, we were talking about, what if you were a kid that for you to actually feel like you needed to be there, needed every single teacher in the building to say, hey, it's great to see you today. I'm so glad that you're here today. If you are so insecure that you need every single teacher to tell you they're happy you're here today, for you to actually believe that it's true or actually feel that, like, maybe you don't need 3 positives to 1. Maybe you need 15 positives to 1, And so like just kind of being mindful of that makes me like work that much harder at it, because even though I'm struggling to get 3-to-1, like maybe they actually need more than that. So I don't know. It's hard to do it and to maintain like being genuine, because you don't want
Right.
to be like, you don't want to be like, hey, great job sitting down in your seat, just like everybody else, You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to I don't know, you don't want to make them feel like you're being fake, but you are physically looking for reasons to give that kid a compliment or give that kid a positive.
That's
And I
true.
have my first hour class, I have students that are always late, and I never say anything to them about being late. I always say, I am so glad to see you today. And
Yeah.
the first 2 or 3 times I did that, they're like, am I not in trouble for being tardy? I said, I am just happy that you're here at school. And so when I told my principal and my administration that I was doing that, and they're like, well, we put those kids in your class for a reason, because all the other teachers are always on them when they're tardy. And they said, we knew that you would just be happy to have them. And talk about a feeling of, of a connection with those students. And so the students, they check in at the office and they come to my room. And I'm just always, because I think of, if they weren't here at school, what would they be doing? So, and then the other thing I've been trying to do is being very intentional of calling the parents or emailing the parents when the student does something exceptionally good. And sometimes the parents, the first time I called and they saw it was the school, and they're like, what did my kid do now? And I said, I'm just calling to tell you that there was a really great thing that they did, and explain to them the thing that they did that was good. And parents are like, we never get calls like that from the school.
Yeah, I need to do that. That's on my list. That's just like that 3 to 1. I'm like, guilt. So much stuff I want to do. And I just.
Unfortunately, my administration does not share that same perspective that you just shared about tardies. It is a constant topic of conversation. It's three tardies, and then you get a non-social lunch, and then the fourth tardy is a non-social lunch, and the fifth tardy is a non-social lunch. Like, it's not something that I have that ability really to be flexible on. But I think that is and you have high schoolers, right?
Oh, I have, first hour I have high schoolers.
Yeah, so that's awesome that especially the ones who are like supporting their families and they're just trying to get to class and just trying to be a part of school. I think that's an awesome way to just open that door and like relieve some of that stress for them. I think that's awesome.
But Anita,
Sorry,
they come to the office right on the way.
that we've got 10 minutes left. So just a little FYI, we've got 10 minutes left before Zoom is going to kick us out.
I think the one thing that I wasn't sure how we wanted to approach it, I think we all know that we want to talk about different split topics, and if we can create a document to kind of split those topics up. Do we have a particular format that we want to present it in? Do we want it to just be us speaking, like recording our faces, or did we want it as any kind of presentation? Or, I know that they're like, it's your chance to be creative, but I can't think of that much that can be easily done over this program.
Just talking. We could have a shared PowerPoint and screen share our particular slides. I mean, that would be one suggestion, but I'm okay with just talking.
I'm good if we just talk. We've kind of concepts from the reading, how we work with families or students experience trauma, and then the last room would be the classroom or practices to accommodate students' experiences. I would probably say that last one, it sounds like we have a lot that we could talk about. So maybe if 2 people take that one.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
I would like to talk about modifying classroom for student experiences a little bit. And then on concepts from the reading, I would like to talk about the Angela Watson's podcast. Is that the right name? No, I'm blanking.
I think so.
I think it is. Yeah.
I'm fine with doing either of the things that are left in terms of either concepts from the reading, the majority of it, or the modifying class. Matthew, did you have a preference between the two?
No, are those the 3 things we want to focus on, or I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was just kind of like picking out the main points from the little assignment blip on Blackboard, what she wanted us to cover. So
Okay, you're down twice, Cadence. You want to talk about both those things? So we're just supposed to pick a couple of those.
Yeah, well, and anybody can join me on how they modify their classroom as well, or any way that they accommodate students. So, and I'm just going to talk about the podcast on concepts from reading. So someone else could talk about either of the other 2 readings, or
even the a really good one to talk about. One we just referenced.
Oh, the article that Matthew mentioned, or
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd love to talk about that one. I can talk about that, and I could also talk about I could talk about what Marysville's doing with families. You know, the grant that we have a person working on, and our AEP approach there. So that's more global than the specific classroom. So I can talk about those too.
That'd be great.
Okay. I'm fine with doing the second leg of modifying classrooms. That works for me.
Cool.
Okay.
So
Do
yeah,
we want to like maybe make a PowerPoint or a Google Slides and just share those 3 topics, and then just show those, not necessarily put anything else on them, but just have that as a topic. So when we present,
yeah, I think that sounds good.
And you know, to me, I liked how the conversation went tonight. I wouldn't mind if people want to ask a question or interject there. Just maybe we have our slides, and then, but also it's a little bit open ended, so that if Cadence or Liam or Anita, you guys say something really interesting, I can go, hey, I got a question about that, so that you can to lead you on a little bit,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
Right. As long as we don't go overtime.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of shoot for like 5-ish minutes each, and then we have like a little bit of wiggle room too. So if one of us goes a little long, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
okay.
And do you want to share this? I mean, you've already created this document. Do you want to start a Google Slides doc as well, and we can just all add to that and then refine what we want? I don't care about the format. I never care about the format, but if somebody feels really strongly about the format, we can argue about what color, like
No.
90 characters.
You want me to share that out?
That'd be awesome.
Okay, yeah, I'll just create like a blank one and I'll just share it to all of us and anybody can add anything.
Good.
And then,
So-
like my class groups, you can complain that you had to do all the work. Matt and Liam didn't do anything in this project. That's the first response to group projects.
Mm.
So then do we just, is this call recorded?
Yes,
Okay. So then we'll put this on the discussion board along with our minutes.
yes. So after we hang up, what I will do is I will load this to my YouTube channel and that will create a link. And so then I can send a link to Liam or whoever is posting the minutes and then it can be in one post.
Okay.
Are you
Yeah,
gonna post that, Liam?
yeah, I can update with what we covered today.
Perfect.
Thank you,
We want
guys.
to go ahead and schedule our next one.
Yes. Let me grab my phone so I have my calendar in front of me. 1 second.
Do other folks have Friday off because of parent-teacher conferences?
Oh, I do. Yes. That's a thing.
I'm going to be at the Kate
Not.
conference in Wichita.
Okay. No, I was just curious. I didn't know if that was going to work for anybody else or not.
Yeah, good thought. Hold on, let me grab my phone.
Hey, Anita, I peeked. You guys are 4A. Osawatomie's 3A. We're 3A.
I'm at Skyline.
Oh, you're
I'm
at
not
Skyline.
Pratt.
Oh, never mind. You're
No.
not. No, you're going to be smaller then.
Yeah, we're a small 2A. We teeter between 1A and 2A, so
Yeah. 123 is what KSHSAA says.
which we're only about a mile from Pratt.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I could do Tuesday night, or Friday or Saturday or Sunday. That's pretty much what I've got.
What time Tuesday night?
Probably anytime after 6 is
Okay,
fine.
I have parent-teacher conferences. I don't have any of my kids signed up for Tuesday yet. They're all on Thursdays, but I still have a few.
Yeah, I've got parent-teacher conferences Wednesday and Thursday, and I'm booked. It's like 4 to 7. Like,
Yeah.
We're Tuesday, Wednesday. If you guys
Well-
want to try Friday, I could find a gap in there somewhere for us to do 20 minutes, I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, we can pick Friday evening. I don't have an issue with that. I just was trying to see if other folks had that day off. Would Friday evening work for everybody?
yeah, Friday night's good. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, we're going to be doing something in Wichita, but I can get away for 30 minutes to do something. So
Are you sure?
you'll figure it out.
Okay.
I'd rather do it on Friday. I'd rather get it done so that we don't get into Sunday. I know we have till Sunday, but it's nice just in case something comes up and we, tech difficulties.
None of you guys have school on Friday?
I don't have it on Friday.
I don't, but I'm at Wichita at K conference all day.
Okay. I mean, I'm available. Whatever works. I got conferences on Tuesday and Thursday nights, but other than that, maybe Friday night then. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Is there,
Do you have the itinerary for that conference?
I'm looking. I haven't seen it yet.
Thing, because then you could see.
No, I mean, I'm sure we're probably done by 5 on Friday, but I don't know.
Okay.
They haven't sent me an agenda, so they only finalized it last week. So
Do we want to just plan on 6:30, just like we did tonight?
let's
I'm
see.
okay with that.
Sure. Anita, does that work for you?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay. So 6:30 on Friday. Whoops. Oh, and this is about to kick us out. So I'm going to say good work, team, and I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording, and we'll see you guys 6:30 on Friday.
Sounds good.
Thanks.